having a crap time at work? That's a daft question, most of us are. If you are, perhaps you should stay tuned to today's video, because I'm going to go through a few things that you might find helpful that can probably, possibly turn that around. So stay tuned and we'll get started. Right, hi everyone. Out for a autumnal walk. It's getting a bit chilly actually, hence the new beanie. But as I said at the intro, sometimes work can feel a bit overwhelming, and we often adopt a thing called a victim-perpetrator mindset. And what that means is things are being done to you, or at least that's how it feels. So at my work at the moment, there are a lot of problems. They mainly revolve around finance, and it's something that we have no control over. I'll explain why in a minute. I'm on a busy road. I'm going to have to keep stopping the recording, but I'll explain in a minute what's happening and why. Right, so I'll put an article here somewhere here that was in the recent local papers just about what's going on at my work. But essentially, general practice is a bit of a weird model. You have one client, which is the local health board, and they determine how much they're going to pay you. So it's a bit like you've got a broken washing machine and you get a plumber around, or a washing machine white goods specialist to have a look at it, and he says, well, that'll cost £150 to repair, and you say, no, I'll pay you £12.50, like it or lump it. It doesn't work. But that's how it is in general practice. You've got basically one client, and in the NHS you're not really allowed to do private work or other work as a GP in your own practice, so no other form of income. And if they decide that they're going to cut what they pay you, or they're going to put prices up for your rent and things like that, you have no options other than to cut your services, and unfortunately that potentially puts people at risk. But there's not much you can do, because that's the way it is, and you just have to make the best of a bad situation. So in today's video, I am going to talk a fair bit about things that might be affecting you at your work, and what could you be doing to try and help those. I don't know if any of you have heard of a guy called Ross Edgley, but the man's a lunatic in the best possible way. And a few years ago he decided he was going to swim around the whole of the UK, which I think took him something like 180 something days. He swam for 6 hours every 12 hours and spent the other 6 hours on a catamaran, and every 6 hours got back in the water, and essentially swam with the tide day after day after day. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, he contended with an awful lot of difficulty when he did that, and he ended up writing this book called The Art of Resilience. And one of his phrases in that is control the controllables. And that's what today's video is all about, is what can you control in your workplace that might make things a bit better for you. Right, I'm going to use the example of where I am right now. I'm walking on a road. It's a tiny little B road, but it's really busy this morning, and I'm getting frustrated that all these people inconsiderately have decided to drive their cars on a Sunday morning where I'm trying to film a video. Now, not a one of them knows that I'm doing this, and none of them have decided this morning when they set their alarm to get out of bed, I better go and drive down that road just to annoy him. But that's what my brain is telling me. It's telling me, oh, these guys, they should know better. Don't they know? Anyway, that's what happens in the work situation that I was describing there. So if you are having problems at your work, chances are, with the exception of a few difficult things like workplace bullying and things like that, chances are it's not about you. It's about other things, probably of which you have very little control. And maybe that does include things like bullies and people misbehaving. You can't really control them. All you can do is control your actions around them. And for the longest time I've been saying there are only two things you can control in the whole world. One is your feelings and one is your actions. And we'll go on to discuss the actions that you can take when you're in a working environment that's not feeling great. So I've told you all before many times, mood follows action. Said it lots. And if you act beaten, this is one I came up with this morning. If you act beaten, you'll get beaten. So part of the actions you need to take are the actions of someone who feels not beaten, not downtrodden. And you almost have to kid yourself into thinking, right, I can do better here. And funnily enough, you'll start to do better. So that would be my first point, is if you act beaten, you're not going to succeed. So try to think, I know I hate the phrase think positively, but know that you can do better, and you'll do better. And on that note, the second point would be, what's your work ethic like? Because people always say things like they're trying their best. But your best is subjective. It's not objective. There's plenty of people you know probably, or people you've seen or heard of, who do way more than you do. They achieve a lot more. But they have exactly the same set of skills that you do. It's just that their ceiling of what they think their best is higher than yours, so they'll do more. So I actually think when you say you think you're doing your best, are you actually doing your best? Or could you raise that ceiling? So one thing I tell people to do before they start down the path of writing CVs and quitting and things like that is to get you don't even need to buy the book. You could just go online and look at a website called Sparketype.com by a guy called Jonathan Fields. He runs a podcast called The Good Life Project. But the Sparketype questionnaire it's one of those personality questionnaires, but it's specifically for the workplace, and it'll give you 1 of 10 Sparketypes. Very clever, archetype, Sparketype. And that's your kind of primary thing you should be looking to do more of in the workplace. And it's all about doing more of the stuff that fills you up and less of the stuff that empties you, because unfortunately you still have to do some of that. But if you're more full with the good stuff, then the bad stuff doesn't feel so bad. So get a copy of, you could get Sparked, which is the book, or you could alternatively just do it online at Sparketype.com and see what you get for your Sparketype. So the next thing to do is to look for opportunities. Once you've done something like Sparketype, you'll find that there is actually opportunities for you to grow into areas of the working environment that you enjoy. I hate certain bits of running a GP practice, but there's other bits that I really do enjoy, and I didn't really understand that until I'd done some of this work. So I like to think of myself as the project guy. So if we're doing a new project, like a new website, or if there's some audit stuff that needs done, or if there's a prescribing bit of work, it's usually me that puts my hand up to do that stuff, because I know that, well, I don't know if I'm any good. I might be terrible at it, but I do like doing it. So it's usually me that does that, but I wouldn't have known that. I also know when to sit on my hands and not put my hand up and end up doing bits of work that I can't stand, because I know that empties me way more than it does other people. So look for the opportunities, say yes to ones that you think would be useful for you, but that does require you doing a bit of work to know which opportunities fill you up. And when you've got those opportunities, work hard. Do it to the best of your ability, because sooner or later the big opportunity will appear. And if you just wing it, you won't do a good job. And people will stop offering you those opportunities because they think, well, you didn't do a good enough job last time. You say you like it, but you don't really do the work. So yeah, opportunities, take them, but make sure they're the right ones. And when you do them, work to the absolute maximum of your ability. Now, I mentioned things like Sparketype and doing a bit of self-awareness work. And I think that's the next bit that is definitely worth mentioning, which is, do the self-improvement work, do as much as you can, because you do need to be the best version of yourself in the working environment. And if you've got a lot of negative things going on, chances are you're not your best self. So you have to, again, I always say work hard, but you do have to put the work into yourself first. And that will help you, because when you do self-improvement work, you become more resilient. People don't really understand the word resilient. People think of resilience and they think of the word strength. But a Coke can is strong, but it's not resilient. It will never, ever return to its shape after you crush it. Whereas something like a rubber cup, or one of these plastic keep forever cup things. If you stand on that, it'll bend, just like the Coke can does. But when you take your foot off it, it'll go back to its previous shape. And that is what resilience is. It's the ability to take a hit, but then return to as good as you were before. So I think that's an important distinction between strength and resilience. They're not the same thing. And if you do all the good work, if you do the 6-pillar medicine stuff, you sleep well, you exercise regularly, you have a healthy diet, you've got good connections, you stay away from toxic substances and behaviours and things like that, then you'll be more resilient, which means when things go wrong at work, yes, it will feel rubbish, but your chances of recovering afterwards are higher, which is why I'm out doing this walk right now on a Sunday morning. And it's just so that tomorrow at work, on Monday, I can think, yeah, that's pretty bad here, but it's going to be the weekend soon and I can get out on another walk, or I can have my Wednesday night run, or do all these things. So do the self-improvement work. And with that will come some self-awareness also. And you'll know what makes you tick. And you'll know when things are not going well, that perhaps you're not doing all of those good things. And you'll become aware of it much faster, and therefore you can get back on it quickly. Yeah, so self-improvement work, very important. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is your attitude. And I don't mean bad attitude. You got a bad attitude, like they say in American TV shows. I think, didn't BA in BA Baracus stand for bad attitude? I think it did, having 1980s flashbacks there. But attitude is really important, and your attitude can be helpful or unhelpful, as with most things. So with a helpful attitude, if something's going wrong at work, you can actually sit with it for a while and go, what's the learning here? I don't feel great. Something must be happening. How can I minimize this next time? And actually stand at that growth edge and peer into the abyss and see where the learning can be had. In medicine, and I'm sure in many other environments, they do things called SEAs, which stands for Significant Event Analysis. And a few years ago, they changed them to LEAs, which is a Learning Event Analysis, and that's definitely a better title. And learning can become learning's very straightforward if you have a protocol like that, because all you need to do is go, what happened? Why did it happen? What did I learn? And what can I do differently next time? And if you've got something that's uncomfortable at work, do an LEA. And you might find the next time it happens, you've figured a way out or you figured a better way of managing it. So that's a bit about attitude. Now, a negative attitude might be a case of, I don't like that, I'm not doing any more of it. You've maybe that is some learning, but you've perhaps pulled away from opportunity to learn a bit more about yourself or about the environment you're working in. So I would definitely advise that you don't do that. And an example of that might be that you're going to a wedding and you get into the wardrobe and you try on that shirt that's been at the back of the wardrobe for ages, and when you put that on, it doesn't fit. So what do? Well, you put it back in the wardrobe in the hope that one day it will fit, but generally you probably go and buy a new shirt, and that's the wrong attitude. The attitude should be, why does this not fit? And what can I do and what's within my power to try and change that? Okay, I've bought plenty of new shirts because the old ones don't fit. But still, I do still try. And I think that's important. A positive mindset, a positive attitude is a lot more helpful than a negative one, even in the working environment. Okay, last up is integrity. What's integrity? Well, integrity is who you are. Integrity is your values, your morals, things like that. And I definitely recommend people do a thing called values work. Now, you can actually download, no, I don't think you can download, but you can buy a deck of cards. I'm sure you can download a list of values. But what I did was, there's a woman called Lisa Congdon. I think she's an American illustrator and she does a lot of this work. But you can actually buy a deck of cards from her, which I think has about 72 different values, and you can read what they all are, and you put them all in order, and then you take the top 10, and then you put those in order, and then you take the top 3, and those are your top 3 values, and they're things that you should live by. So my 3, I think, were family, courage, and creativity. And when you've done that work, it's really useful, because when you're in any environment, whether it's work or not, you can quickly determine if you're actually living an aligned value, or if you're actually the jobs you're doing and the work you're doing it just doesn't feel right, and you sometimes don't understand why. But if you understand your values and your value alignments, you might realize that what you're being asked to do, or what bit of work you're doing, doesn't align with your values, and therefore that needs to go. And you need to look for, back to the opportunities thing, opportunities that align with your values. Something weird happened in that last clip. I think I pressed the record button twice. I was blabbing on about values and then it just stopped. Anyway, I think what I was going to say is I hope some of that's been useful. It's probably felt a bit ranty. I did have some notes on scrumpled bits of paper. I felt a wee bit like Eminem in that movie 8 Mile, when he's on the bus scribbling lyrics. In fact, he was wearing a beanie just like this one. But I think it is important that we do this hard work, because in the situation that we've got at work, my hope is that we just hold fast and that things get better in the coming weeks and months. And if this ever happens to us again, well, we'll be all the more resilient for this episode we're going through just now, and we'll take the next one on the chin like we've done with this one. So do that hard work. I hope there's some good information in there for you today. Please leave comments below if you've got any suggestions on how this could be done better. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Nice.